Hey, what's going on, guys? So some of you may have seen this image that I posted online of my Gunpla wish list, and then I also invited you guys to share your wish list as well. It got quite a lot of traction, especially on Twitter, but on I think Facebook and YouTube it was there as well. A lot of you guys commented or made your own wish list images, and I thought in this video it'd be fun to kind of take a look just through mine and then through some of yours as well, what some of you guys shared that were on your wish list. And so I just want to give a special shout out as well, just because I've got my Discord server with all my awesome Patreon supporters on there, and this was actually an idea that I kind of adapted from something that was shared by someone there in the Discord. So shout out to everybody there in the Discord, awesome group of people there. So for my personal wish list here, just kind of go through this one first. I have the Obsolist there for an HG Mechanics, and the HG Mechanics line is a line that only I think has 3 releases ever, and it's been a long time since Bandai has released anything in the HG Mechanics line. So I would love to see that line come back for like mobile armors, and then they're made in like a much smaller scale, like 1/550 scale, something like that. So I mean, I love the Obsolist design, really kind of any of the Obsolist designs, but that's just one of many great candidates that I feel like would be good for the HG Mechanics line if it were to make a comeback from Bandai. Also on here, I have the HG Syscade. Now the Syscade was a design that I didn't expect that we might ever get a model kit of, but then we did actually get both versions out in the SD Cross Silhouette line back a few years back, not too long ago, and I don't know if they've been reprinted any time recently. It's been a long time. I wish that those would at least get reprinted. Anyway, since Bandai had enough confidence to release those as SD Cross Silhouette kits, it would be nice to see those actually produced in like full scale, and like an HG I think would make a lot of sense, would make the most sense. Probably it would be P Bandai, but it's such a cool design, and I think we're gonna see a lot of these on here where they're like SD designs that we would like to see in like kind of full proportions. I know the Knight was one I saw on a couple people's lists as well, but there's a few of those that I think would make good candidates. Also on here I have the RE100 release of the Hygog. Honestly, I would love a Master Grade Hygog, but if we're not gonna get a Master Grade, I'd be perfectly happy with the RE100 kit as well. I would be happy with more RE100 kits in general. So I would like to see just a 1/100 scale version of the Hygog would be awesome. Up next then I've got the Sentinel in there for an MGSD. I think that would just be a really cool design, shrunk down to those MGSD proportions. It'd be really cool to have the Sentinel in those proportions, and with the release of the Kshatriya coming out, I think it'd make a really cool set to have the two. That's still a very young line, and we kind of really still don't know a whole lot about kind of what to expect that Bandai might do with that line. You know, from release to release, it's very hard to predict, but the Sentinel is definitely one that I would love to see. I got the MG Rosen Zulu on there. Of course, you guys know I love the Rosen Zulu. I would love a 1/100 scale version of that. Again, it's the case where like if it happened to be RE100 kit, I'd be perfectly fine with that. Although a Master Grade kit would be really cool. And then I think also if they're making a Rosen Zulu, they could also make a Gira Zulu. They could make a Z Zulu. There's done a bunch of different kind of variants that they could make, maybe based off of a Master Grade Zulu frame. I don't think it's really all that likely, but it does seem like a Gira Zulu MG would have been something that we would have seen by now, considering that we've got 3 different versions of the Master Grade Rezel from the Unicorn series. It does honestly feel a little one-sided. Then last thing on here, just for the SD Cross Silhouette line, speaking of the Cross Silhouette line, I've got the Gelgoog on here. I am not a huge SD person fan, as I always remind you guys, but the SD Cross Silhouette line I really do quite like a lot, and you know, I love the Gelgoog, so I think the Gelgoog would be cool to see in SD proportions and like a really nice SD, because I think the SD Cross Silhouette line is the best of the different like SD lines that Bandai has. So while an MGSD would also be really awesome, I think just a SD Cross Silhouette would be pretty cool to see. Okay, so taking a look at some of your guys' lists now, this one was pretty interesting because we've got the Hazelthea on there as an MG. That would be really awesome. I honestly really think that at some point we'll get a Woundwort MG kit, but I'm just not sure if and when, you know, that might actually happen. I have a feeling about it. The Hazelthea though, I would say is probably much less likely. Also the HG Future Century Devil Gundam, that's one that I know a lot of people, I've just heard for a long time, people want a nice new HG Devil Gundam. It's again something that I think there's a lot of appetite for. I just don't know if it's very likely at all. I mean, the whole point of these lists was not for like, you know, make your predictions as to what you think Bandai might actually make, so it doesn't have to be like realistic predictions, it's just kind of what you want, right? But I have seen there's a lot of people that do want a new Devil Gundam kit, and I think it would be really cool. I agree. The other thing that I thought was really interesting on this list was the RG XS Gundam. I think that would be really cool. I love the XS design. It is a bigger mobile suit, so even though it's a really like complex mobile suit, even shrunken down to 1/44 scale, it's not quite as small as something like the RG Crossbone is like tiny. The XS is a pretty large Gundam, so even at 1/44 scale, I think Bandai would have enough space in there to make it as complex as it needs to be an RG. So I think it's possible, and I would really like to see it. I think it's very unlikely, but you know, we can dream. This next one's got some really interesting stuff. In the HG mechanics slot, he's got the Kondo version of the Heavy Weapon System New Gundam, I believe is exactly what that is. You know, anything Kondo as like a model kit would be really, really cool. We've seen those new like figures that are coming out of, I think there's 2 different versions of the Gyaradoga, if I remember correctly. But as far as like anything specifically Kondo design as like a model kit is not something that we've seen really like for this style. Well, it would be really cool. I think it's pretty unlikely. HG slot here, we got the Tequila, of course. I know that you guys are really hungry for a Tequila release. It's something that I wouldn't have thought would be at all possible, but with the recent release of the HG Mandala Gundam that I've talked about, that does kind of open the door to maybe the Tequila Gundam not being completely out of the realm of possibility, to be honest. And then the Woundwort. I just mentioned how I thought the Woundwort would make for a great MG, and I think it kind of would make sense for that Bandai might make one at some point. But MGSD would be really cool too. I mean, I love the MGSD kits. I love the Woundwort's design. I think the Woundwort's design adapted to the proportions of MGSD would look really cool. But I think the big problem with that is that everything that's Advanced Zeta is just going to be premium Bandai, and so far we haven't seen, I don't think like as far as like anything MGSD being premium Bandai, we obviously haven't seen anything that's like a full like completely new release like we sometimes see with HG kits being as a P Bandai. We haven't seen anything like that with MGSD, with the MGSD line. Even any kind of like color variants or exclusives that are MGSD, I think so far have all really just been Gundam-based exclusives, not premium Bandai. So anyway, again, not very feasible, but I think it would be very cool. Also got the Jim Spartan on there in the MG slot. I think that's a great idea. That would be really cool. That would be probably could be based on the Jim 2.0 frame, so I think it's entirely feasible. And that HG was a P Bandai kit, but it was a really, really popular HG P Bandai kit, so I think it would make sense to come out with the MG of that. And then the Turn A on there in the SD cross silhouette spot. I mean, I saw a lot of lists with a lot of Turn A stuff on there. I don't know if it's just because like recently there's been a lot of Turn A stuff around on Twitter just because of the anniversary, or it's just a lot of people coming around to loving the Turn A designs. And so the Turn A Gundam as an SD cross silhouette would be awesome. I'd love to see anything new related to Turn A, to be honest. And actually, speaking of, this very next one here is all Turn A, and I can definitely support this. So we've got the RG, Turn A, and Turn X. I think both of those would be really cool. I think the Turn X much less likely. An RG Turn A though, I mean, it could be. It's very possible. The HG Kapul, we know that Bandai at least has the molds for an HG Kapul because they released the Momo Kapul back quite a few years back now in what, the Build Fighters Try line, I want to say. I could be wrong about that. The Build Divers, one of those. But if you guys remember, in the Momo Kapul kit, some of the runners are just labeled Kapul. So we know that Bandai has the molds for that, or at least some of the molds. And so it's just kind of a matter of when is that actually ever going to be released. It was quite a long time between the release of the Build Fighters version of the R Gyaga to the actual HGC R Jaja, as an example, kind of similar to this. And again, with the Kapul having both the Turn A version and the Double Zeta version being like color variants, you would have to imagine that one would be released as a standard release, one would be P Bandai. I think that would be awesome. As would be having the Sumo as a nice new HG as well. Honestly, I would love a 1/100 scale Sumo. I think a Sumo would be really nice for a 1/100 scale, either as a master grade, which would be awesome, or as a 1/100 scale. And I'm not sure if it would ultimately be RE100 or full mechanics, kind of which way they would go with that. I don't know, but either way, as a 1/100 scale kit, I think it would be really, really nice to go along with the master grade Turn A and Turn X, just a 1/100 scale Sumo as well. It's a really cool design and would make for an awesome kit. And then the RX-7882, an odd inclusion on there amongst all the Turn A, but I remember reading the post about this saying that he wanted a new HD RX-7882, but one that was kind of more like anime style. And I could definitely get behind that. I mean, I think a lot of people's reaction would be like, we don't need any more HG RX-7882 Gundams, which I get, but I mean, it would be pretty cool to have that as an option, as a model kit if you're a fan of the Gundam, to have that as a model kit in like that anime style. So it'd be cool. All right, this next one has a few things I could really get behind here. First and foremost, the HG Nero. I would love a model kit of the Nero from Sentinel. I think it would make a lot of sense for this to be released as an RE100 kit to go along with the Master Grade kits like the FAZ, the S Gundam, the XS Gundam that fairly recently got the like 1.5 kind of release. The Deep Striker, obviously. We have the Mark V as a premium Bandai release. So you have all these really nice Master Grade kits from Sentinel. It'd be really cool to have the Nero to go along with that. If not a Master Grade, then at least a RE100 kit would be nice. But I would be very happy with even an HG kit as well. So I would love to just see anything of the Nero. We also have the MG Verka Full Armor Gundam Mark III, which, you know, is always going to be a little triggering for me as one of the unfortunate souls who lost, like, I don't even remember what it was, $200, $300 pre-ordering that kit back in the day when there was this company that was producing, I think it was Ex Machina, that was producing a 1/100, I think it was like even larger than 1/100 scale, it was like 1/72 scale. It was a huge kit that they were producing of this. It ultimately went under and everybody lost their money. It was a terrible situation, and so I'm always going to be a bit triggered by that, but it is a really cool design. It would be nice to have an actual model kit of that. Also, I really like the idea of the Gerbera Tetra as an MGSD. It's such a cool design, and again, like with these more like this, like with the Wound War as well, these kind of a little bit more kind of funky designs when they're kind of shrunken down proportionally into the MGSD scale, I think they look really cool. It's something we see a lot like with the Gundam Converge figures, which you guys know that I love. Also, the Gundam Assemble line is another example of this. So I think the Gerbera Tetra would be one that would be awesome. Very unlikely as an MGSD with it, like only in terms of other model kits that it has. I guess it probably has a like SDBB Senshi kit, and then obviously it has the HG kit, but that's pretty much it. I don't think that it has quite the popularity level to make it into that line, but it would be awesome. And the RG Master Gundam I do want to mention as well, just as another one that I think that I would really love, being a huge fan of the Master Gundam's design and just G Gundam generally. I would love to see that to come out as an RG to kind of go along with the God Gundam, because we already have the God Gundam and the Shining Gundam out in the RG line, so it'd be really cool to have a Master Gundam to kind of go along with those. All right, up next on this list, we've got an entry grade Age 2, which is an interesting choice. I would love to see more entry grade stuff. I mean, it's a really cool concept, that line in general, and I would think the Age 1 would probably make more sense, but the Age 2 would be pretty cool. The Reborn's Gundam there in the RG slot, I gotta say, definitely one that I know a lot of people would love. I mean, after that MG tease for the Reborn's Gundam back years and years ago, I think a lot of people have just been, you know, anticipating that we would get a new Reborn's Gundam in some fashion, because on that, you know, on that infamous poster showing the Kshatriya, and what was it, like the Kshatriya, the Leo, a bunch of other stuff that I think, what was it, those were candidates for the RE100 line, I think is what it was, if I remember correctly. I'll put it up on the screen there for you guys, but the Reborn's Gundam was on there. Basically everything else from that list, almost everything, not everything, I think there's the Reborns and then maybe one or two more from that list that haven't gotten a kit yet, but basically everything else from that image did go on to get a kit. Not necessarily RE100, but they all got kits, and so we've been kind of waiting for that shoe to drop. What's going to be the new Reborn's Gundam kit? Could it be RG? I think that would be pretty cool. I think it would be really cool to have a Master Grade of that, to be honest. Then in the Master Grade slot there, he's got the Astaroth Gundam, and I think that's the Astaroth Renascimento. I could be wrong about that. There's a couple of those variations that I do tend to get them confused. But yeah, I mean, anything new from IBO in the Master Grade line would be really cool. Actually, that would be a candidate that I would really like, you know, compared to other ones. I would like any of the Astaroth kits, personally, more so than like the Floros or the Gushun or the Gushun Rebake or the Gushun Rebake Full City, some of the other ones that I think are the more likely options. Yeah, I'm with you that personally I would prefer an Astaroth or one of the Astaroth variations. Also, having the Delta Kai on here in the RE100 spot, the Delta Kai is one that I saw a couple people put in like either RE100 or Master Grade or something like that. I think it makes a lot of sense for that just to be a Master Grade based off of the Delta Plus. I know the Delta Plus has kind of a mixed reputation. I personally love the MG Delta Plus. I know there's some people that aren't a big fan of the kit, but I think it's solid enough, and if we were going to get a 1/100 scale Delta Kai, it would probably just be based on the MG Delta Plus, and I would be very happy. I would love that. I think that would be awesome. And then the MG SD Sinanju on there, agreeing with me on that. This one was pretty funny, just all Big Zam. I think we're very, very, very due for a Big Zam model kit, and I think what would make the most sense would be HGUC. I mean, if they were going to bring back the HD Mechanics line, that'd be great. I think it'd make a good candidate for that. It wouldn't be very big, but I think we've seen Bandai make larger HG kits like the Destroy Gundam not that long ago, the Psycho Gundam Mark II, even more recent. So something kind of a similar size to that for like an HG Big Zam, I think is completely possible. And with it being like kind of like one of the first like big bosses from the original series and a very popular design, I think we're really overdue for a new Big Zam kit. I think for anything else, RG, MG, MG for Ka, MG EX, Perfect Grade Unleashed, obviously much less likely, but for an HG, honestly, it's very possible. But all right, let's take a look at it, just a couple more here. The Jamru Fin in the HD Mechanics slot is an interesting choice. I really like the design. There is a model kit of this. It's an older, like 80s kit, you know, kind of like a janky one, but having a nice new kit of that would be cool. This one, again, either HD Mechanics or just HGUC, I think could be really cool. Having a nice new kit of the Jamru Fin would be cool. It's a cool design. Again, the sumo on here in the RE100 spot, I can't argue with that. Would love to see a sumo. MG Kapul. Now, an HG Kapul, like I was just talking about a few minutes ago, very likely, and I think would make a lot of sense. But an MG Kapul, I mean, I would love it. I think it's much less likely, but I would love it. I love the Kapul design, and I would love to see that. An interesting choice in here too for SD cross silhouette is the Gundam Aquarius. This is another one of those SD designs. I actually did review this old SD BB Senshi kit of the Aquarius. This is a really interesting like side story design from Gundam Wing. I think it's just from one of like the G generation games or something, but it would be really cool to see that as a SD cross silhouette, like a new SD kit of that. Otherwise, I would love to see that again in like kind of full scale, like either HG, which would probably make the most sense, or even a 1/100 scale as like a full mechanics, something like that would be pretty awesome. All right, this one is expanded and had some really cool stuff on here that I could definitely get behind. An HG Mechanics of the Zammel. I would love this. I would love it either as an HG Mechanics or just as a full-on HG, because the Zammel's big, but it's not like that big. I think it would, for just a regular HGUC kit, I mean, it would definitely be, you know, larger than usual, but not even anything close to something like the Psycho Gundam Mark II, which again was a very large HG that we recently got. The Zammel, I guess, it'd be in terms of just like, because it's not as tall, but it is pretty dense. So probably would have a similar size box as like the HG Psycho Gundam Mark II. But yeah, it was almost a really cool design that just doesn't have like any kit representation at all. It would be really cool to see an HGUC of that. I think that would make perfect sense. The other one right next to that too, the Gamalk, is another design that I would love to see a nice new model kit of the Gamalk, whether it be HGUC, which again would be a pretty big one, or HG Mechanics again for this one, with it being kind of in that size. It's not like a huge mobile armor, but it's pretty big. The Gamalk, I think it's not quite as tall as the Psycho Gundam Mark II. I could be wrong about that. I don't think it's quite that big, but again, it is quite bulky. But whatever the case, I would definitely love to see a nice new model kit version of the Gamalk. The Perfect Grade Unleashed Zeta is a really interesting choice. I think that could definitely happen with the Zeta Perfect Grade being pretty old, pretty dated at this point. I think doing a nice new updated version as a Perfect Grade Unleashed would be really nice. So I can definitely see that happening. The Biolarnt RG, I love the Biolarnt. I don't think that's very likely to come out as an RG. If anything, I would love to see a 100 scale version of the Biolarnt. So that would probably be a good candidate for the RE100 line, I would think, and I would love to see it. The SD Cross Silhouette Phaz, I think, would also be really cool. Again, pretty unlikely, but the Phaz is just such a cool design. I mean, having any new version of that would be very interesting, especially in like SD style. The Garibaldi as an MG would be awesome. I do love the design, but considering we've not yet gotten any Witcher Mercury MG kits, again, that's just gonna make it a little bit less likely. But like I've been saying, it doesn't mean that we can't hope. And then we'll maybe end with this one, which is another all Saikomu Zaku for all grades, all scales and everything. And again, with this one being a design that I absolutely love, I would love to see this as well. Probably, I think this makes the most sense as an HGUC kit. That would be like the most likely, especially again with this one, not having any kit representation other than an old 80s 144 scale model kit of it. I think it might be kind of interesting if they were to, you know, skip, you know, like the normal progression would maybe be that it would get an HG, but maybe if they just kind of skipped over that and went right to like an MGSD, something very weird, I think would be really, really cool. With this being such an obscure design though, I mean, I don't think that it would get an MGSD. Maybe a SD cross silhouette, like I said, with the Siscade being kind of an obscure one that ended up getting a cross silhouette release. The Saikomo Zaku, who knows, maybe. It could be cool. I think, yeah, the most likely would be HG, and I would love to see it. I love the design. It'd be really cool to see a nice new version of that. They could also then make the Bishop version as well, which is like the version that with like the same upper body. Anyway, it's like similar based off that, but it has like the normal legs instead of like the big booster legs. So anyway, guys, that was just taking a look at a handful of these, but there's a whole bunch more, especially if you go on Twitter. If you check the post on Twitter and just look through some of the replies and some of the reposts, there was a bunch of people getting in on making their list, and a lot of really cool, a lot of really interesting stuff on that list as well. So maybe, hopefully, somebody at Bandai maybe saw that list as well and kind of got some good feedback from us in the community. But yeah, you can also leave your list in the comments section down below. What are some of the kits that you would love to see? I mean, like in a, you know, in your dream perfect world where you could just imagine anything and just make it happen, what would you love to see? Let me know in the comments. And that's gonna do it for today's video, guys. Thought it would just be fun to just kind of take a look through some of those. So thank you to everybody who kind of replied, made your list, and gave me some cool stuff to look through. And again, shout out to my awesome supporters over there on Patreon in the Discord. Thank you to USA Gundam Store as always for making it all possible. Check the link in the video description for USA Gundam Store as well for more model kits, paints, tools, supplies, all that good stuff. And in the meantime, guys, if you wouldn't mind subscribing while you're here, leaving a like, I really appreciate all your support. I'll see you next time. Later.